What would you do when love falls apart, the family is torn and dark secrets are exposed? This is not just the story of Angela, Marcus and Camille, but a profound lesson about greed, jealousy and unending pain. Step into a story that will leave you unable to look away. Once upon a time, in the region of Atlanta, Georgia, where the African American community thrives, there was a man named Marcus Richards. Atlanta was not only a bustling hub of culture and history, but also a place where traditional values were carefully preserved. In a peaceful neighborhood, the image of Marcus stood out, a resilient man who had overcome all obstacles to become a symbol of success, admired by many. Marcus was born into a humble farming family. His childhood was filled with long days of working on the fields, calloused hands, and a burning desire to escape poverty. With unwavering determination, he began his life's journey by working tirelessly. From someone with nothing in hand, he built a vast real estate empire and a thriving farm, rising to become one of the wealthiest and most powerful people in the area. By the age of 40, Marcus was not only a successful entrepreneur, but also the pride of the community, respected by everyone for his contributions and kindness. Despite achieving tremendous success, Marcus retained an astonishing humility. He was known for his fairness, always placing the well-being of his employees and the community above all else. In community meetings, Marcus was never hesitant to share his experiences and help young people with aspirations of starting their own businesses. His image, wearing a simple shirt and a sincere smile, became a symbol of success accompanied by kindness. Marcus's life became even more complete when he met and married Angela, a woman with gentle beauty and sharp intellect. Angela was not just a partner but a trusted companion on the path Marcus walked. She was always there, supporting her husband, helping him balance work and family. Their marriage became a symbol of love and respect, admired by many in the community. Angela gave Marcus 3 daughters: Sienna, 15 years old, a smart young woman with a love for the arts; Naomi, 12 years old, known for her wit and energy; and Lila, 8 years old, the youngest but the most sensitive soul in the house. The 3 girls were not only Angela's pride, but also the light of Marcus's life. He loved his daughters deeply, spending time with them after long working hours, telling stories, teaching them life lessons, and always emphasizing that family was his most valuable treasure. However, not everyone in Marcus's family shared this happiness. Evelyn, Marcus's mother, was a conservative woman who placed great importance on tradition. In her view, a family was only truly perfect when there was a male heir to carry on the family name. Evelyn frequently reminded Marcus of his responsibility to have a son. Every time she visited, the atmosphere in the house became tense. She was not shy about expressing her disappointment, even criticizing Angela for not bearing a son. "Marcus, you are the pride of this family. Are you really going to let the Richards name end here? A male heir is your responsibility." Angela, with her calm demeanor, always chose silence in the face of Evelyn's criticisms. She didn't want to make Marcus uncomfortable, but deep down she understood the pressure they both were facing. Angela often found comfort in Marcus's loving smile and gaze. He always tried to protect her from the harsh words, but the pressure from his mother and the community began to seep into Marcus's mind. Evelyn didn't just speak out of turn. She often compared Marcus to other men in the community, those who had sons to carry on their names. She believed that Marcus's reputation and legacy would not be complete without a son. Each visit from Evelyn felt like a storm, leaving tension and sadness in its wake. Angela, although trying to remain calm, couldn't stop the tears from falling when she was alone in the room. Marcus, a man who was always proud of his family, began to feel torn. He loved Angela and his daughters deeply, but the whispers from the community, the knowing glances from the neighbors, and the constant pressure from Evelyn made him question whether he should do something to fix the problem. He knew Angela was not to blame, but the idea of carrying on the family name hung over him like a shadow, weighing heavily on his shoulders. Every evening, when sitting at the dinner table, watching Angela lovingly care for the children, Marcus's heart was filled with love and gratitude. But at the same time, deep inside, he couldn't stop the thoughts about whether he should make a difficult decision to please his mother and the community. These internal conflicts grew larger, laying the foundation for the events that would forever change the Richards family's life. Every time Evelyn visits, the atmosphere in the Richards household becomes heavy, as if a silent but powerful storm is sweeping through every corner of the house. Evelyn, Marcus's mother, was a strict woman who carried with her the heavy weight of traditional views on family and lineage. Although she didn't live with them, her presence during each visit made the house feel uncomfortable. She was never hesitant to express her discontent, especially toward Angela, her daughter-in-law. Angela, the gentle and intelligent woman, always tried to create a warm atmosphere for the family. But in front of Evelyn, all of her efforts seemed unrecognized. Evelyn frequently criticized Angela in front of their daughters, using sharp words like daggers. "Marcus is the pride of this family. Are you really going to let your name disappear because of this woman's incompetence?" Evelyn's words not only hurt Angela, but also left a deep impact on the hearts of her 3 daughters, Sienna, Naomi, and Lila. Although the girls were still young, they could feel the tension and pain their mother was enduring. Meanwhile, Angela always tried to maintain her calm, never retaliating or arguing. But deep down, her heart ached every time Evelyn spoke cruelly. Angela often chose silence, not because she was weak, but because she knew that arguing with Evelyn would only make things worse. Every night, after the children had gone to bed, she would quietly sit by the window, her gaze resting on the garden that Marcus had planted for her in the early days of their marriage. Those sweet memories were now overshadowed by the darkness of harsh words and overwhelming expectations from her mother-in-law. "I've done everything I can, haven't I?" Angela would often ask herself in the solitude, but no matter how hard she tried to convince herself, the pain and hurt continued to haunt her. Marcus, the strong man who loved his family, could not escape the pressure from his mother. Although he always stood by Angela, protecting her from the criticisms, Evelyn's contempt and the gossip from the community began to seep into his mind. Evelyn didn't just stop at criticizing Angela. She frequently reminded Marcus of his responsibilities to the family. "Marcus, you are the one carrying the Richards name forward. No one in this community will ever forget that. But if you don't have a son, everything you've built will be meaningless." These words rang like a bell in Marcus's mind. He knew his mother wasn't wrong in terms of tradition, but he couldn't blame Angela. She was the partner he chose, the one who had stood by him through the toughest years. Yet the pressure continued to grow, and he found himself torn between his love for his wife and his duty to the family. Not only Angela and Marcus felt the tension in the household, but even the 3 daughters were not spared. Evelyn's criticisms often echoed in front of the girls, leaving lasting marks on their young hearts. One time, when Evelyn was angry, she said in front of the whole family, "None of these 3 children can carry the Richards name. They're all just daughters." Sienna, the eldest daughter, although only 15 years old, understood the meaning behind these words. She would always try her best, from studying to helping her mother care for her younger siblings, hoping that her efforts would change her grandmother's views. But the cold glances from Evelyn made Sienna feel increasingly helpless. Naomi and Lila, even younger, would often retreat to their room whenever Evelyn visited. They didn't fully understand what was happening, but the sharp words and the tension in the house frightened them. Angela always tried to protect her children, teaching them, "We can't change how others think, but we can choose how we respond. Always do what's right, my children." Marcus, who had always been proud of his family, now could not avoid the long, restless nights. He often sat alone in his office, staring at a family photo. In the picture, Angela smiled brightly beside their children, and he realized that was the reason he worked so hard every day. But then, Evelyn's words would echo in his mind. "One day, everything you've built will be forgotten if you don't have a male heir." Marcus knew he needed to make a decision, but every time he thought about it, his heart grew heavier. He didn't want to hurt Angela, but he couldn't ignore his mother. These internal conflicts slowly became an unbearable burden. The atmosphere in the Richards household continued to grow tense. Angela remained silent, hiding her pain behind a gentle smile. Marcus, though he loved his wife, also began to feel the pressure building. Evelyn, with her unwavering resolve, continued to sow discontent, and in this charged atmosphere a great storm was brewing, waiting to explode. After many years of being torn between family love and pressure from his mother, Marcus finally gave in to Evelyn's demands. She continually emphasized that in order to preserve the Richards family line, Marcus needed a second wife to bear a son. Evelyn's persistence, like waves endlessly crashing against the shore, ultimately broke Marcus's resolve. With a heavy heart, he agreed to let his mother find a worthy woman. Evelyn didn't waste any time. She began her search everywhere, from wealthy families to distant villages. Finally, she chose Camille, a 25-year-old woman from a poor family in New Orleans. Camille embodied allure. Her smooth brown skin shimmered like honey under the sunlight. Her large, sparkling eyes were like dark jewels, and her long, shiny hair cascaded down like a black silk ribbon. Camille was not just beautiful, but also carried a confidence that made it hard for anyone to look away. Though Evelyn was pleased with Camille's appearance, the motivation behind Camille's decision did not stem from love or respect for Marcus. Camille's family, though simple, was proud and strongly opposed her decision. Her father, a man of great self-respect, pleaded, "You're still young, Camille. Why tie your life to a man who already has a wife? You have a future ahead of you." Her mother, with eyes full of tears, tried to persuade her. "Camille, please think about your dreams. Don't let poverty cloud your will." But Camille had made her decision. For her, this marriage wasn't a sacrifice, but an opportunity to escape poverty and step into a world she had never dared to dream of. Camille didn't care about love or the warnings of her family. To her, this was a chance to change her life, and she wouldn't let anyone stand in her way. Marcus and Camille's wedding took place quietly. There were no extravagant ceremonies typical of wealthy families, nor were there joyful laughter or sincere well-wishes. Evelyn made sure everything was arranged as discreetly as possible, avoiding the curious gaze of the community. In the cramped space of a banquet hall on the outskirts of Atlanta, only a few people attended. Camille walked into the ceremony wearing a simple white dress, but her beauty still made everyone look up. Yet her eyes revealed no joy. They were the eyes of a woman who knew exactly what she was doing and why she was there. Standing next to Marcus, a man burdened with responsibility, they seemed like two strangers at a ceremony devoid of love. Angela was not present at the ceremony. At home, she tried to keep her composure in front of the children, hiding her pain like a smouldering flame in her heart. She understood that Marcus's decision did not come from betrayal, but from unavoidable pressure. But that didn't lessen the sorrow in her heart. Immediately after the wedding, Camille moved in with the Richards family. The house, which once held the happy memories of Angela and Marcus, now seemed to lose its warmth. Camille entered with clear confidence and ambition. She did not hide her intentions: to enjoy the wealth and secure her position in this family. Evelyn was satisfied with her choice. She believed that Camille would quickly provide Marcus with a male heir, and with that, she could rest assured about the Richards family legacy. But what Evelyn didn't anticipate was that Camille's presence would mark the beginning of conflicts and unavoidable tragedies. Marcus, though he had accepted the second marriage, could not hide his true feelings. He treated Camille with courtesy and provided for her generously, but his heart still belonged to Angela. Every evening, he spent time with his first wife and daughters, telling stories, laughing, and cherishing peaceful moments. This didn't go unnoticed by Camille, and jealousy began to stir within her. Camille entered the Richards family as the second wife, but her presence felt like a cold wind sweeping through the once warm home. She always appeared in glamorous attire and with undeniable confidence, yet inside she harbored calculations no one could predict. The Richards family, already under so much pressure, now faced a new challenge. After moving into the Richards house, Camille entered with the confidence of a woman who knew her own beauty and allure. She carried with her an ambition that was not hidden, believing that her position in this family would be secured through the charm and power she thought she deserved. Camille was not shy about demanding attention and expensive gifts from Marcus, seeing them as the obvious things a wife like her should receive. However, Marcus's heart had long been tied to Angela and their daughters. Every evening, he spent time with his first family, listening to the little stories from Sienna, Naomi, and Lila, and sharing loving moments with Angela. Marcus still tried to treat Camille politely, providing her with everything she needed, but he couldn't pretend that his love for her was real. This made Camille, who was accustomed to getting everything her way, begin to feel neglected and consumed with jealousy. In the early days at the Richards house, Camille still tried to hide her discontent, but every evening, when she saw Marcus laughing and playing with Angela and the children, her jealousy grew like an undercurrent. She felt belittled, pushed to the sidelines of a family where she should have been at the center. Every time Marcus spent time with Angela, Camille would quietly sit alone in the large room she had once imagined would be filled with happiness. The gifts, the promises from Marcus now seemed insufficient to fill the emptiness in her heart. One evening, after a long day where Marcus hardly spoke to Camille, she couldn't hold back any longer. Her anger, like a tidal wave, swept away all restraint. She walked straight into the living room where Marcus was sitting and confronted him. "Why did you marry me if you're not going to treat me like your wife?" Camille yelled, her voice filled with anger and frustration. "I'm not a replacement for her." Marcus, though surprised by Camille's outburst, remained calm. He looked straight at her, his eyes showing clear signs of exhaustion mixed with sadness. "Camille," he said, his voice steady but firm, "I will always take care of you, but my love for Angela and our daughters cannot change." Marcus's words struck Camille like a knife to her pride. She stood there, trembling with anger, unable to say another word. For Camille, not winning Marcus's heart was not just a failure, it was an insult. She felt like an unnecessary presence in this house, a house where all emotions were directed toward Angela and the children. After the confrontation, Camille began to withdraw. She became quieter, not because she had accepted the situation, but because she was secretly brewing thoughts of revenge. With each passing day, the bitterness and jealousy within her grew. She told herself that she would not let Angela and the children continue to hold the central place in Marcus's life. But instead of confronting them directly, Camille chose to assert her power in a more subtle way. Camille began to do everything she could to attract Marcus's attention. She changed her wardrobe, choosing the most glamorous and eye-catching outfits. She attended social gatherings, always making sure she was the center of attention. Every time there were guests visiting, Camille tried to present herself as the perfect woman, the one who deserved to stand by Marcus's side. But no matter what she did, Marcus's eyes always softened most when they were on Angela. This only deepened Camille's heartache. She began looking for the smallest signs, hoping that Marcus might change, but instead of receiving attention, she only got polite reassurances. Every time Marcus said, "Camille, don't worry. I will always make sure you have everything you need." Those words only drove Camille deeper into despair. She didn't want everything. She wanted love, a sense of belonging, and the lack of love from Marcus made her feel like a failure. While Camille struggled with her feelings of abandonment, Angela remained composed. She didn't intend to hurt Camille, but she also didn't relinquish her place in Marcus's heart. Angela knew that Marcus's love for her was genuine, and nothing could change that. She continued living her life, taking care of their daughters and spending time with Marcus. In Camille's eyes, this only fueled the animosity. She began to see Angela not just as a rival, but as the one who had stolen the happiness she believed she deserved. The smiles, the embraces between Angela and Marcus no longer seemed like ordinary gestures. To Camille, they were provocations, proof that she would never replace Angela in Marcus's heart. Gradually, the relationship between Camille and the Richards family became more strained than ever. Every time Camille saw Marcus laughing and joking with Angela, she felt as though her heart was being squeezed. Camille began to notice every small action from Angela, from the way she taught the children, to how she spoke with Marcus, even the brief glances exchanged. One evening, Camille could no longer tolerate it. She confronted Marcus again, this time with a fury beyond control. "What do you think I am, Marcus? A decoration? I'm your wife too. I deserve to be loved like she is." Marcus sighed, his eyes clearly showing fatigue. "Camille, you are my wife, but I made it clear from the start that my love belongs to Angela. I will never lie to you." Marcus's response did nothing to calm Camille's rage. Instead, it pushed her further into despair. She felt as though she was trapped in a relationship with no way out, a marriage she could never win. And from that moment on, Camille began silently plotting to change everything in the way she believed was the only remaining option. The day Camille gave birth, the Richards family gathered at the large house, the air filled with anticipation and excitement. For Evelyn, Marcus's mother, and Camille herself, this was a moment that would change everything. Whispers full of hope filled the house. "It will definitely be a boy," Evelyn said with absolute certainty. "The gods cannot ignore this." Throughout her pregnancy, Camille had been confident she would have a son. Her pride grew with each passing day, and she didn't hesitate to declare, "This child will be Marcus's pride, and I will be the one to give him what Angela could not." However, when the first cry of the baby rang out, all expectations shattered. The child was a girl. The news hit like a thunderclap in a clear sky, silencing every sound in the house. Camille, who had once walked proudly with her belly as a crown, felt everything collapse before her eyes. Evelyn, who had always been confident in Camille's mission, could not hide her disappointment. She slumped into a chair, muttering, "After all this, another girl? What kind of fate is this?" Camille, lying in bed, could not accept the truth. Her eyes were filled with disappointment and anger, not at the child, but at herself and everyone around her. Meanwhile, Marcus, though clearly disappointed, remained composed. He took the baby from the midwife, looking at the little face of his daughter, and spoke in a soft but weary voice. "Every child is a blessing." But deep in Marcus's heart, he felt a quiet sorrow. He knew this would add more tension to the family, especially with Camille, who had placed all her hopes and pride on bearing a male heir. In the days following the birth, Camille fell into an unusual silence. She was no longer the confident and proud woman she had been. Instead, she became a woman filled with bitterness, anger, and resentment. Camille began to look at Angela and her daughters with eyes full of hatred. To Camille, Angela was the reason she would never claim Marcus's heart. If it weren't for Angela and those girls, everything would have been different, Camille thought every time she saw Marcus laughing and playing with Angela and the girls. Angela's smiles, the joyful laughter of the children, all felt like daggers to Camille's pride. She felt pushed aside, like an unnecessary presence in a home where she was supposed to be the center. Marcus, although he continued to provide for Camille, could not pretend that their relationship had no issues. He spent most of his time with Angela and the children, leaving Camille alone with the newborn. This distance wasn't out of malice, but because Marcus felt he couldn't connect with Camille the way he did with Angela. Every evening, when Marcus returned home after a long day at work, he chose to sit at the dinner table with Angela and the children, telling stories and sharing warm moments. Camille, sitting alone in her room, felt the isolation. The child in her arms couldn't fill the void that the absence of love and recognition from Marcus had created. "He only sees me as an obligation," Camille bitterly thought. "I'll never replace Angela." The feelings of abandonment and resentment grew within Camille. She no longer blamed Marcus alone, but turned her hatred toward Angela and the children. To Camille, they were the reason she could never have the position she believed she deserved. Camille began to think of ways to remove Angela and the children from Marcus's life. The dark thoughts in her mind became clearer and clearer. She told herself that if there was no Angela and no children, Marcus would have no choice but to direct all his love and attention toward her. "I won't let them take everything from me," Camille muttered in her anger. Camille began to act more subtly. She didn't directly confront Angela, but chose to appear as the devoted stepmother in front of Marcus. She cared for the newborn with all her dedication, but every time Marcus wasn't around, her gaze turned cold and calculating when she looked at Angela and the children. She deliberately created situations to drive a wedge between Marcus and Angela, hoping this would make Angela feel insecure. But every attempt Camille made seemed futile. Angela remained calm and kind, not letting any of Camille's actions affect her relationship with Marcus. Camille failed to realize that her thoughts and actions were driving her further away from Marcus's love. Instead of drawing his attention to her, Camille only made Marcus more disappointed. Meanwhile, Angela continued living her life, focusing on caring for the children and maintaining peace in the family. But Camille, filled with hatred and desperation, refused to give up. She decided that if she couldn't win Marcus's love the normal way, she would use any means possible to eliminate those she believed were standing in her way. And from that point on, a wicked plan began to form in Camille's mind. A plan that would change the lives of everyone in the Richards family forever. On a quiet evening, in the warm kitchen of the Richards family, Angela carefully prepared dinner for the household. The light from the hanging lamp reflected off her busy hands, while the fragrant aroma of the soup filled the house. Outside, the laughter and chatter of the girls playing echoed, creating a peaceful scene that anyone would wish for. But little did they know, this calm would soon be shattered by a ruthless act. Camille, with a cold gaze and a heart full of hatred, quietly entered the kitchen. She looked around to make sure no one was watching, then pulled a small bottle of poison from her bag. Dropping each drop into the bubbling pot of soup, it mixed with the scent of vegetables and spices. Camille's intention was clear: to destroy Angela and her daughters, erasing the family she believed had stolen her happiness and position. Unaware of what was happening, Angela continued cooking with a smile on her face. Dinner was soon served, and the girls, Sienna, Naomi, and Lila, sat down eagerly, as they always did. Marcus, still busy with work in his office, did not immediately join. Camille also sat down at the table, pretending as though everything was normal. The girls, with the innocence of youth, ate the first spoons of soup without hesitation. The laughter and joy continued as they complimented their mother for the delicious meal. Camille, sitting there with a sharp, cold look, struggled to hide her satisfaction. But just a few minutes later, the mood of the dinner began to shift. Sienna, the eldest daughter, was the first to feel discomfort. She grimaced, placing her hand on her stomach and whispering, "Mum, my stomach hurts." Naomi and Lila quickly followed suit, beginning to moan as the pain grew more intense. Angela, frantic, rushed to her children, trying to comfort them and figure out what was happening. Cold sweat dripped down their faces, their pale features filled with fear. "Marcus, Marcus, come here quickly!" Angela screamed, her voice trembling with worry. Marcus rushed into the dining room, his eyes wide in shock at the scene before him. He quickly picked up Sienna while Angela cradled Naomi and Lila. Camille sat there, pretending to be stunned, but a small glint of satisfaction flashed in her eyes. Deep down, she believed her plan had succeeded. Although Angela and Marcus did everything they could to save their children, the poison had spread throughout their small bodies. Within hours, each girl from Sienna to Lila passed away in their parents' arms. Angela's cries tore through the night, echoing throughout the house. She held her lifeless children, their tiny bodies cold, tears streaming down her face in pure agony. Marcus, the once strong man, now knelt beside his wife and children, his eyes red from an indescribable pain. He whispered desperate prayers, hoping against hope that somehow a miracle could bring their children back. Meanwhile, Camille stood in a corner of the room pretending to mourn. She covered her face with her hands, trying to force out fake tears, but deep inside she felt no remorse. To her, this was the price Angela and her children had to pay for taking her place in Marcus's heart. Angela refused to leave her children, Even when Marcus tried to pull her away to rest, she clutched the cold bodies of Sienna, Naomi, and Lila, as if refusing to accept the truth. Her sobs filled the house, now shrouded in silence and pain. Camille, despite maintaining a composed face, began to feel a twinge of worry when she saw Angela refusing to let go. She feared that the pain would push Angela to investigate, and the truth would eventually be revealed. Marcus, though in excruciating pain, knew he had to be a support for Angela. He embraced his wife, whispering words of comfort, but even he could not hold back his tears. The sight of the once strong and wealthy man crumbling before this loss moved even the neighbours, who could not help but grieve with them. Camille continued to pretend to be heartbroken, attending the funeral of the girls with a sorrowful expression. She offered empty condolences to Angela and Marcus, trying to play the role of a grieving stepmother. But Angela's eyes, though filled with tears, seemed to recognise that something wasn't right. A mother's intuition told her that Camille was not entirely innocent. After the funeral, Angela began to pay more attention to Camille. She realised that Camille wasn't truly grieving as she portrayed. Small actions, cold glances, all of these made Angela more suspicious, but with no proof and her grief over the loss of her children clouding her thoughts, she couldn't think clearly. Meanwhile, Camille began to feel the pressure of Angela's scrutinising gaze. She knew that if she wasn't careful, the truth would come to light. But instead of stopping, Camille decided that she had to do something to protect herself, even if it meant continuing to hurt those around her. The Richards' house, once filled with laughter and joy, now stood in silence and sorrow. Angela, once strong and resilient, was now a mere shadow of herself. She could not escape the images of her daughters in their final moments. Marcus, despite his best efforts, could not help Angela overcome this pain. Camille, despite still playing the role of a devoted second wife, could not escape the feeling of fear. She knew that Angela's suspicions were growing, and one day the truth could be exposed. But until then, she continued to maintain her facade, pretending as if nothing had happened. Angela, overwhelmed by a grief too deep for words, spent many days wandering in despair. The image of her beloved daughters writhing in pain haunted her, relentlessly gnawing at her soul. Every night, the laughter of Sienna, Naomi, and Lila echoed in her mind, like ghosts reminding her of the tragedy that had unfolded. She could find no peace, nor could she shake the feeling that a dark secret was being hidden from her. In her utter despair, Angela decided to seek the help of a sea god, said to possess the power to reveal the truth. Despite Marcus's warnings, she embarked on a journey alone to a distant sea. There she knelt before the vast ocean, praying with all the pain in her heart, hoping the god would hear her call. For several days, Angela performed sacred rituals. She offered the sea god her most precious gifts, pieces of white silk, fresh flowers, and the endless tears she shed. On long nights, she sat by the shore, letting the waves wash over her bare feet, whispering her anguished prayers. "Great sea god, please help me. Please show me the truth. I need to know who took my daughters from me." Finally, on the seventh night, under the dim light of the moon, the sea god appeared in a mystical dream. In the dream, Angela saw a clear image: Camille, standing in the kitchen pouring poison into the soup with eyes full of hatred. The sight jolted Angela awake, her heart brimming with fury and determination. She knew she had to confront Camille, to uncover the truth no matter how painful it might be. The next morning, as the first rays of sunlight pierced through the trees, Angela decided to take action. She waited for Camille to step outside, where the morning light cast everything in a deceptively peaceful glow. Camille, as usual, stepped outside with a proud and confident air, but this time, Angela's eyes were ready, full of resolve and anger. Angela walked up to Camille, her eyes bloodshot from sleepless nights and accumulated pain. Her voice trembled but was filled with strength. "Admit it, Camille. You did this to my daughters." Camille startled, stepping back. Her usual smug smile disappeared, replaced by fear. She looked at Angela, her gaze searching for a way out, but there was no escape. Silence enveloped them both, only broken by the distant chirping of birds, cutting through the suffocating tension. I don't know what you're talking about, Camille stammered, trying to remain composed. But Angela wouldn't let her off the hook. She took another step forward, her voice slicing through the space. Don't lie, I've seen it, Camille. I know you put the poison in the soup. The sea god showed me. Now admit it, or I'll make you regret this forever. Camille, realizing she could no longer hide, collapsed to the ground. Tears began to stream down her face. But these were not tears of remorse. They were tears of fear. Her voice shook as she confessed. Yes, I did it. But I didn't mean to. I just wanted you to suffer like I did. I didn't want to kill the girls. I just wanted everything to go back to how it was. Camille's confession did nothing to calm Angela's anger. On the contrary, it stoked the fire of rage she had been suppressing for so long. Angela's hands trembled as she clenched them together in an effort to control her emotions. But everything, her pain, her loss, her betrayal, seemed to overwhelm her. In a moment of uncontrolled fury, Angela unleashed her wrath upon Camille. She grabbed Camille and shook her fiercely, tears flooding her face as she shouted, "You took everything from me! You killed my daughters! Do you think I'll forgive you?" Camille screamed, begging for forgiveness, but her pleas only fueled Angela's anger. In the chaos, Angela grabbed an object nearby and threw it with all her might at Camille. Camille fell to the ground, her cries silenced as she realized there was no escape. Neighbors, hearing the commotion, rushed to the scene, but it was too late. The sight before them left everyone horrified. Angela, once a gentle and resilient woman, now stood in the yard, her eyes filled with both pain and rage. Camille lay on the ground, crying and trembling, while an eerie silence enveloped everything. The tragedy didn't end there. Angela's actions, driven by pain and betrayal, had plunged the Richards family into an irreversible spiral. Marcus, upon learning of what had happened, was completely shattered. He could not blame Angela, but he could not accept what had transpired. Angela, after the storm of anger passed, realized that her actions could not bring back her daughters. She collapsed in grief, repeatedly apologizing in choked sobs. But Camille, despite confessing her guilt, still wore an expression filled with hatred and regret. After all the tragedies that had unfolded, Angela could not find a way to escape the overwhelming pain and loss. She had lost her 3 beloved daughters, the lights of her life. Each passing day, the painful images of her daughters writhing in agony replayed in her mind like sharp blades slicing through her heart. She couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, and couldn't go on living as a normal person. Angela spent many days in silence, locking herself away in her room with the mementos of her daughters. Their tiny dresses, their favorite toys, had now become symbols of a happiness lost. She clutched these mementos to her chest, tears streaming down, her heart breaking into pieces. Angela knew she could no longer bear the weight of this pain. One quiet morning, as the gentle sunlight filtered through the window, Angela sat down at her writing table. Before her lay a blank sheet of paper, alongside the pen that Marcus had given her on their wedding anniversary. With trembling hands, she began to write her final words to the man she loved so deeply, even though he could not protect their family from the tragedies that had befallen them. My dearest Marcus, thank you for loving me, for giving me the happiest years of my life. Thank you for the beautiful memories, for giving me a family I once thought would be perfect forever. But now, I am just a shadow of myself. This pain is too much, and I cannot bear it anymore. I don't blame you, Marcus. I know you did everything you could, but my heart is broken, and there is no way to mend it. I hope you find the peace that I cannot have. If there is an afterlife, I will still choose you. I will still love you. Goodbye, my most beloved. Angela. Angela carefully folded the letter and placed it on the nightstand, where she knew Marcus would see it first when he returned. She took a deep breath, her eyes looking out the window where the sky seemed peaceful and calm. But inside, everything had completely shattered. Angela prepared a poison she had kept for a long time, using it as a means to end her suffering. She gently lay down on the bed, clutching a family photo she cherished the most. With one last deep breath, Angela drank the poison and closed her eyes, taking the pain and love with her to the other side. That afternoon, Marcus returned home after a long day of work. He walked into the large house, but instead of the usual sounds of laughter or the peace he had once known, there was a heavy, empty atmosphere. Marcus sensed that something was wrong, but he could not prepare himself for what awaited him. When he entered the bedroom, Marcus saw Angela lying there, motionless on the bed. The afternoon light poured through the window, casting a peaceful glow on her face, as if she was sleeping. But as he approached, he realized the truth. Marcus knelt beside Angela, his hands trembling as he touched her face, calling her name in desperation. "Angela! Angela, wake up, please!" But there was no response. Marcus saw the letter on the nightstand and picked it up with shaking hands. The words on the paper felt like daggers to his heart. He read each line, tears streaming down, the pain consuming him. Marcus held Angela's lifeless body, filled with guilt and self-blame. He remembered all his mistakes, the times he hadn't been strong enough to protect his family from pressure, the times he had let Camille into their lives. Marcus realized that his choices had pushed his family to the brink of collapse. Meanwhile, Camille was no longer in the house. After the truth had been exposed and her guilt had been confronted by Angela, Camille had left, taking with her the fear and remnants of jealousy. The Richards' house, once filled with love and happiness, was now empty and filled with sorrow. Marcus walked out into the yard, looking up at the sky slowly turning to a deep orange hue as the sun set. He felt as though the world was crumbling around him. His beloved first wife was gone, his daughters were no more, and Camille, the one he had thought would bring satisfaction to their family, had disappeared. Marcus was left alone, facing a deep sorrow and an indescribable loneliness. The tragic story of the Richards family became a powerful lesson not only for the surrounding community, but also for all who heard it. People whispered about what had happened in a house that was once filled with laughter, now reduced to a place that bore witness to immeasurable pain. These whispers served as a reminder that greed, jealousy, and societal pressures can destroy anyone, regardless of their wealth or power. But for Marcus, these whispers held no meaning. He lived with the memories that clung to him. The images of Angela and his daughters still vivid in his mind, like scars that would never heal. In the days after the tragedy, Marcus became a shadow of himself. He, once a strong and ambitious man, was now but a shell, drained by sorrow and regret. The grand house he once took pride in now stood empty, every corner haunted by the memories of what had been. Marcus spent most of his time in the garden that Angela had once loved. He carefully tended to each flower, replanting the ones she loved most as though trying to keep a part of her with him. Beneath the gentle sunlight, he often sat among the flowers, whispering as though Angela were still there. "Angela, I'm sorry. I hope you can see this." On evenings, when the night descended, Marcus sat in the living room staring at the family photos. Angela's smile, the innocent eyes of his daughters, everything seemed to come alive, making his heart heavier. Marcus knew that his own weakness had led to all the losses, and he would never forgive himself. In the darkness of his life, Marcus still had one light left. The only daughter still alive, the result of his marriage to Camille. She was his final comfort, the only reason he kept going. Despite the tragic relationship with Camille, he decided not to let past mistakes affect his daughter's future. Marcus poured all his love and devotion into raising her. He became a devoted father, doing everything to ensure she had a good life, far removed from the shadows of past tragedies. He taught her valuable lessons from his own mistakes. You don't need to prove your worth to anyone. You don't have to bear unfair expectations. Live with a kind heart and a strong soul. Under Marcus's care, his daughter grew into an independent, intelligent woman, full of compassion. She was a testament to the fact that even from the ashes of tragedy, hope could still arise. The story of the Richards family was not just a sad one. It was a valuable lesson about greed, jealousy, and societal pressure. It reminded everyone that poor choices, whether driven by pressure or good intentions, could lead to irreversible consequences. Marcus understood that the value of family does not lie in meeting societal expectations, but in love and respect between its members. He realized that he should have protected Angela and their daughters from unreasonable pressures rather than letting them destroy everything. But more importantly, the story was a reminder that even in the face of suffering, there is always an opportunity to learn, to correct mistakes, and to find the meaning of life. In the final years of his life, Marcus often sat beside his daughter in the garden he had planted for Angela. On one evening, as the sunset bathed everything in golden hues, Marcus held his daughter's hand, now a strong and proud woman, and said with emotion, "You are truly my legacy. From the ashes, I have found hope. But remember, daughter, never let anyone or anything make you forget your worth." The girl smiled, her eyes shining with confidence and gratitude, but behind that smile, there were still unanswered questions. Would the shadows of the past ever truly let her go? Could she fully escape the scars the Richards family had left behind? The story was not over. As a new generation begins, will the lessons from the past be strong enough to shape the future? Or will similar mistakes be made again? The story of the Richards family is a powerful reminder of the strength of love, perseverance, and the importance of overcoming societal pressures. But every audience member may view the events differently. What about you? What do you think of this story? If you were Marcus, what would you have done differently? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to hit subscribe and click the bell icon so you don't miss out on more emotional stories on the African Tales channel. Thank you for listening, and we'll meet again in the next episode.